Hello everyone, thank you so much for checking out the inaugural episode of A Couple of Dumbbells. I am your host, Erik Braun, co-founder of OPT Athletics and a certified athletic trainer. I'm going to be bringing on Josh Lamparski. We're going to be talking about his journey in health and wellness, some of the inspiration that he has, and taking that into the anxieties and obstacles that newcomers to fitness face, all while having some fun along the way. Again, thanks for checking us out. Stay tuned.
No worries.
Like that switch. So let's just get right into it. Just why don't you tell everyone kind of what you do, where you come from, kind of how you got into health and wellness.
Sure. So I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I was in high school, going into college, and I started getting into exercise somewhat. I had a bunch of friends that did exercise. I'm like, why not? I'll just jump into it. I started going to the gym, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. So I started taking this fitness leadership class through Henry Ford while I was in the wait list to get into physical therapy for PTA. Finished that, it just came kind of natural to me, and I really enjoyed it. And I also started thinking about like what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and I really liked helping people. So I kind of had that as a driver, pushing me through school and whatnot. And I just started getting really into all the curriculum and learning about how the body works and how muscles worked. I got really interested, so I just became this giant nerd. Like, I was not a nerdy kid growing up. I was far from that. Yeah, no, isn't that surprising?
I don't know, man. You're always a hardworking nerd.
Now I am.
When I first met you, you were a hardworking nerd.
So once I graduated from Henry Ford in 2016, I went to Siena Heights, got my bachelor's, to just open up another door of if I wanted to go get other.
What did you get your bachelor's in?
Just applied science. It's kind of, I'm not trying to poo-poo anything, but it's kind of a joke. I mean, it's just a piece of paper, but that's all a degree is nowadays anyway. It's just a piece of paper that says that you spend a lot of money to get stuff, and 9 times out of 10, when you talk to people that have degrees in pretty much anything, they kind of don't know what they're talking about unless it's like a doctorate or something of that nature. You know what I mean?
That requires more research.
Exactly,
right.
Yeah. So, like, for example, like my dad, he's an engineer. He gets people out of, like, U of M all the time or, like, other colleges that have these degrees and they did well in school, but they have absolutely no idea what to do in the field.
Oh man, that was That's always a big thing for a lot of people coming out of school is they don't have the like that sort of applicable like great you have all this book smart. What are you gonna do with it?
Exactly, they don't know how to apply the stuff that they learned in school. They just memorize a bunch of stuff and they can just spit it back out. But when they have to apply it to a person or to a machine or whatever, they can't, or they have a hard time doing it.
Would you say it's something that is you get with time, or you were you had that fitness leadership certification? Did you say you were already pretty well versed in that?
I think I was decently well versed. I think that I could have been susceptible to falling down that path, but given like that, my whole situation with my dad and how he was telling me about that kind of stuff, I wanted to make sure that didn't happen to me, which is when I started getting into all my certifications, and I wanted to learn as much as I could as from anywhere, whether it's from like neuro rehab like type stuff, if it's just general fitness or just nutrition, anything that I can learn that pertains to health, wellness, and rehab, I want to know about it.
So obviously you've kind of put that into your whole life with your alphabet after your name, because kids can just look at your business card here and literally learn every letter.
However I can help, I guess that works.
So you spent a lot of time looking at the technical, the scientific background for each of those. How immediate would you say you were able to apply those sorts of skills? So you have a corrective exercise specialist for one, CES. Was there kind of a learning curve, or were you able to be like, nope, got it, because you had that mindset?
Having that mindset really helped me pick things up like that a lot quicker than I think if I wouldn't have gone the route that I went. Drive is everything. If you don't have drive to do whatever you're trying to get to, you're probably not going to get there, or it's going to be a really rough patch because you're not focused on the end goal. I think that for anything, whether it's fitness, getting a good career, relationship wise. You need to have a goal in mind, like a big picture at the end, like a light of a tunnel. Light at the end of the tunnel, to kind of aim for, so that when obstacles get in your way, they don't get discouraging, because you're focused on the end product, if you will.
What is drive to you? So you talk about drive. You talk about kind of having that end goal in mind. What is drive? Because I think a lot of people, they might, I know for myself specifically, I have a really good time starting something, and then I have to figure out a way how to finish it. And to me, it's not so much a problem of passion, but it's a matter of process. So how does drive fit into that?
I think drive is, again, looking at what you're trying to achieve, but looking at how you're going to get there. If you don't see a way of how you're going to get there, it's going to be really hard to get to the end result. Breaking that down even further, if you look at like doctors, for example, right? It's a lot of school, right? If you look at
is it 8 years minimum, and then you go into your specialty?
Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah. So if you look at big picture wise, I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna make a lot of money, right? And I'm gotta go to school for 8 years and half my life before I can actually start making money. It sounds pretty discouraging, right? Yeah. But if you look at it from a breakdown standpoint, where you're just like, all right, I got med school. That's only, let's say it's 4 years or whatever. I don't know how long med school is, but you just look at sections of it and you finish one thing at a time instead of looking at, I got to do all these things to get to the end, and I only have 1 out of 20. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then you get 2 out of 20 and 3 or whatever. You just one piece of the puzzle, and then kind of break it up into pieces. Exactly.
Chunk it down, yeah.
That way, when you finish one thing, it's not, holy cow, I got 40 more things I got till I'm done. I got one thing down. What's next? Yeah. And then focus on that thing, and you get that done. Now you have 2. Pretty soon, breaking it down that way, you're gonna be done, because you're not focused on the 8 years that's going to take. You're focused on 1 year at a time. Pretty soon, 8 years is gone before you know it.
Yeah, and that's something you could apply to like anything. I think a lot of people, they get caught up in trying to get this big, large, massive goal, but they ignore all the smaller goals that it takes to get there.
Exactly.
So like you said, the 1 out of 20. If you have it so where you're 1 out of 20, 2 out of 20, that percentage thing, and don't get me wrong, it's good to step back and be like, all right, where am I at in the grand scheme of things? But doing that every single day will just consistently remind you, like, oh man, I have this and this and this and this. So like one thing at a time. I had my mentor when I was working baseball. He said this thing to me. He's like, clear your desk every day. Clear your desk.
Yeah.
And what's on your desk might be different every day. And how that fits into the grand scheme of things, that's all going to come in time. But the first thing that you need to worry about is clearing your desk. And at the time, I'm just like, me being intern of scared shitless of a pro baseball internship, I'm like, I better make sure my area is clean.
Yeah, there you go.
I was like, oh man. So, but no, he actually meant like, just do the small things to clear it out every day. So when you go home at the end of the night, you can reflect on how everything fits in, or you can figure out like, hey, I did some good work today. I don't need to worry about anything until someone throws all their shit on my desk tomorrow.
Exactly. There you go.
So you went through school, you got all these certifications, and now you're coming up to PTA school, right? Mm-hmm. So you went into it with a lot of these certifications already.
I had a handful of them, like the fitness leadership. I had the corrective exercise specialist and performance specialist, just through NASM, just to kind of complement that. So going into it, my plan was to already have as much knowledge as I could, so that I set myself up for success. And I think that's a big thing with anything too, is as far as drive goes, if you give yourself things that you're going to succeed at, the big picture will naturally come as a success, right? If you focus on all the failures and you're not setting yourself up for success and you fail all the time, it's going to be really easy to fall off the bandwagon and never reach what you want to reach, just simply because you never set yourself up to succeed in the first place.
Speaking to failure, sometimes you can set yourself up, get all the certifications, have all the experience, and still fall flat in your face. I mean, I think you and I are both somebody who have probably seen a lot more failures than we have. So, I mean, I would say you're a pretty successful guy, don't get me wrong.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
But I think for both of us, we've probably failed a lot more times. that's a scary thing to a lot of people, and I think that's a scary thing when it comes to not just fitness but life in general. How have you navigated through failure? Like, what's something that you failed at, and how did you get through that, and what did you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was in school, just in general, not necessarily for physical therapy or my credentials or anything, just school overall. Like I said, growing up, I wasn't the best kid growing up, and you fail and whatnot. Like your classes or your tests or didn't turn in homework. I never turned in my homework until pretty much sophomore year of high school when reality set in. And I was like, oh, okay, if I don't start passing these classes, I'm going to be in some serious doo-doo. You know, I also had my parents jumping down my throat, which is a whole different story. But it helped kind of drive that butt kick into change and turning around. And I remember one time I failed a class and my parents were basically going to kick me out. Just because I didn't doing what I needed to do. I wasn't listening. So kind of reality kind of set in. I know it sounds kind of corny and cheesy, like, oh, it's kind of stupid. But for me, that was the swift butt kick. I'm like, I'm going to be on my butt out on the street, and I have nothing to support myself. I don't have a job. I don't have the ability to get a job because I'm not going to finish high school. So changed everything, turned it around, and realized that I either can continue going down the path that I'm going to go down or that I'm going down, and these are going to be my options, which were slim to almost none, and I didn't like those options, or I can do these things to change that, and these would be my options, or these are the visions that I can see being options in the future. Obviously, I chose not to go down the path I was going down, and as far as failing goes, I think people learn best by failing, within reason, obviously. That sometimes if you make a big oopsie, it's hard to bounce back from it. But that's kind of situational. I think the biggest thing is perspective-wise. You can either, when you fail at whatever you're failing at, whether it's school, you fail at something you're doing at work, and your boss says, don't do that again, slap on the hand, like you show up late too many times. The boss says, you show up late again, I'm going to fire you, right? It's time to realize either if you want that job and you like it enough, probably shouldn't be late anymore. Or you just don't care, show up late, and then you might lose your job, You
were given the option. You had the necessity, the stimulus to change, and it goes from there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess getting back to my point or my rant is look at when you fail at whatever you failed at, think about your perspective. You can either focus on the negative side of, no, you didn't do this right. No, you didn't do A, B, C, and now you're not going to get the end result. Or you said, okay, I messed this part up with the process of getting to the end, but this is how I can fix it. I'm going to learn from what I did so I don't do that again. And that just builds like your character, number one. And number two, it also kind of builds like your thought process on viewing life in general,
I like what you're saying about addressing the negative, because a lot of times there's, and I'm a big fan of the positive vibes and bringing, the good things, thinking about the good things, right? But too often people will ignore the negative. And while you don't want to live in the negative, you have to address it. And I think that being, okay, I fucked up on A, B, and C. You need to be aware that you fucked up on A, B, and C. Because if you don't become aware of that, you're never going to fix the issues that led to A, B, and C.
Absolutely.
So if I'm late, if I'm 5 minutes late every single day, my boss is like, hey, if you're late by a minute tomorrow or any other day, you're done.
Yep.
You're out. It's a simple fix. Leave earlier, right?
Absolutely.
Or well, think about this too. What else could prevent me from getting there on time? Well, there could be traffic. My car could break down. Like you said earlier, setting yourself up for success, taking care of these small things, these ancillary things that you don't think of in the grand scheme.
Yeah.
Because if you don't think of those, if you don't make the 5 minutes out of your day to put gas in your tank, change your oil, set your alarm, they're going to pile up. They're going to leave you in a position where you're going to be late to work. Next thing you know, you're on a job, and you have a bunch of large things suddenly that you have to take care of.
Right.
So I guess getting back to my point, when you are exposed to failure, when you go through something that is complicated or something that is traumatic, you have to take control and you have to figure out what it is that you can change. Some things are out of your control.
Right.
You can't control traffic.
Nope.
You can't control.
Kind of cool if you could, though.
Yeah, obviously, right? If you had one of those inspector gadgets.
That's right. Go traffic mover
I always tell people, like, if I had a superpower, it'd be teleportation. I don't want to drive.
Yeah, I don't want to drive either. People are crazy.
Some people like flying and shit. Like, I just want to teleport. Get me there.
I want to be there right now.
Yeah. And same thing too. Like, you should still get there early, but like, I can get ready and like I can sit around. I'm 15 minutes before wherever I need to be. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, gotta be there in 15 minutes. I'm there.
Just get out of bed.
Bam. What's up? Yep. But take care of those little things. I think is the biggest kind of underlying theme of all of it. When you get to that failure, look at the little things that you may have missed. Look at maybe some big things that you missed. Embrace the suck. Embrace the shitty failure.
Mm-hmm.
And then apply that to what you're going to learn.
Absolutely.
So in the future, you're not reactive to what you're learning. You're proactive to what you have learned.
Absolutely. 100%.
Don't need to mess with anything.
Yeah.
Hey guys, just wanted to take a minute and thank you all again for checking us out. We're going to switch over the other part of our conversation, a little bit about the health and wellness anxieties, and also a little bit of just advice we've learned from a fitness technique point of view, and just some other goofy stuff we throw in there. So thanks again. Please share us with your friends who might be interested, and thanks for tuning in as we join the conversation once again. And sort of like the obstacles and barriers to health and fitness. So what I was saying in the intro was that whether you are a lifelong athlete that's been lifting and performing exercise, professional or whatever, for 20 plus years, or somebody who took the opportunity to kind of reflect and say like, hey, I'm going to treat this like a New Year's resolution. I'm going to get back into fitness. The obstacles and the anxieties outside of what you would say health and safety of like wearing a face mask, wiping down equipment, washing your hands of the normal COVID return.
Sure.
What sort of anxieties are people going to have returning, whether you are a newcomer or an experienced exerciser?
Yeah. I can see, when I did personal training in a few of the gyms when I was doing it in the gyms, people were coming and they were saying, my biggest thing is I'm afraid of what people are going to think of me when I'm doing whatever exercise, especially when they don't know what the exercise is doing, what it's for, how to do it the right way, what weight to use. Do I use weight? Do I not use weight? Can I do it without using weight? And that's what they would come to the trainer for. So I think the biggest thing is just people being too worried about what people are going to think of them when they're doing it. And I think the best way to handle that is just to walk into the gym and leave your ego at the door. It doesn't matter what anybody in that gym thinks. I do the weirdest stuff when I'm at the gym. And it doesn't matter what people tell me. I've had people come up to me all the time and they're like, yeah, that's not really doing anything. You want to go over here and do this and you're trying to do this.
Haters.
Well, yeah. So, like, for example, like military press, right? You and I both know what it's for. It's like, for shoulder strength and whatnot, but there's different ways to do it, right? So I don't like doing military press because I don't normally go with a person to work out with. You're probably the only person that I know that if I went to the gym, you'd actually want to go with me, because everybody else, all my other friends, they're not into the whole fitness thing like I am. I mean, they're my friends, but we just don't share that kind of connection like that, That
was like the best gym experience I had when we went that one time.
Yeah.
Like, I remember we were just doing like random agility shit.
Sure.
Like, that was the side plank that like we had the band and we were doing this rotation thing.
Crazy
but
Copenhagen's.
It was just like, you and I both, like, we have the approach of, we don't give a shit what people think. I think that's because we come from that background. So that's sort of our privilege.
Right.
Which like, we have that luxury. But I think when you say like nobody else really gives a shit,
mm-hmm.
like, I think there's some credence to that. And as much as people want to say like, oh, you can say that because you've been in health and fitness for years. Most people, 99% of the people that you come across in the gym
mm-hmm.
are too focused on what they're doing to even worry about it. And guess what? Like, you're gonna find some things that work and find some things that don't. And the things that you do find that work, the odds are you're going to have somebody that comes up to you and is like, hey, like, talk to me about that. Like, that looks really cool.
Yeah,
most people that go to a gym are there for growth and there to build themselves up. And if they see something that they think that might help them, they might even come talk to you.
Absolutely.
And I remember I think we were doing some of the agility stuff, or maybe it was an eye drill, because I remember you showing me the eye drill. My booty was burning. My booty was
booty burner.
I did that with a patient who benefited from it, and they never came back. It was a minor injury.
Sure.
but they didn't come back, and then I found them later on. They were trying to go back in their game, and they were cleared to play the entire time, so I had no issue with it. But they were trying to go back in their game. I'm like, why didn't you come see me? They're like, cause my ass hurts from working with you. I'm like, well, how's your ankle? Like, yeah, it's fine. My butt's the thing that hurts. I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
You're welcome.
I think they were doing wind sprints that day, so they just wanted to get out of it, which fair. You kind of understand. But getting back to the gym approach, most people in the gym, they don't care. And you going through, and if you are doing something wrong, most people are going to come up to you and be like, hey, if it's a safety issue.
Right.
If it's not a safety issue, they'll probably leave you alone. But if it's a safety issue, like, hey, like, they'll come up to you and talk to you and say, you might want to, fix this. Now, you do get that 1%, though. When you get that 1%er that is trying to come up to you and talk shit to you or say you're doing something wrong, and they're the gym bros that are, because they exist, we've all come across them if you stepped in a gym, and you're probably afraid of them if you've heard anything about fitness or you've seen stuff on social media. What would your reaction be for somebody like that, for the gym bro or the 1%er that is trying to tear somebody down?
I think of those people as when they see someone doing something and they're coming up to you with the intention of telling you what you're doing wrong. It doesn't mean you're necessarily doing anything wrong. They're intimidated by you. This is the way I look at it. They're intimidated by what you're doing because they might not be able to do what you're doing at the time, and they don't like that. So there's one or two ways. They're either going to put in the work to be able to do what you're doing, or they're just going to try to tear you down. Well, putting in the work to do what you're doing sounds like it's hard. I don't want to do anything hard. So I'm just going to tear you down just by telling you you're doing something wrong. You're not really sure, or you saw it on YouTube or whatever. You're not really sure of much of that exercise. If this person coming up to you looks like they know what they're doing, well, I'm just going to stop. And then they stop doing that, and then everybody wins, And that's like kind of what I was getting at with when people come up to me all the time in the gym. They're like, that doesn't look like it's doing anything. And then, we'll try it. And they're like, oh, wow, that's really intense. I know. And then they start trying, they're like, oh, you're all right by me. But for somebody that's coming new to the gym, I wouldn't really be concerned about what Joe Schmo says unless you're paying them to give you advice. I mean, I wouldn't tell them to go fuck themselves, right? Because what they might have to offer as far as safety concerns, like you were saying, might be pretty valuable. Like, for example, doing like a lat pull down with people going behind the head. I see a lot of big guys are like, oh, that's the best exercise for you. I'm like, for your lats, maybe. For your rotator cuff, not at all. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I guess weigh the benefits, but they don't look at it from a safety concern. They just know, I want to be shredded and huge and as big as I can be. I want to be this roid monster. I want big lats, so I'm going to do it behind the head because somehow it changes the muscle function. I don't know how, but I mean, whatever, man. Whatever you want to argue.
Let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about the bro lifts. So going with a lat pull down, sure, you might feel that in your lats, but I think what a lot of people miss out when it comes to stuff like that. I saw this video the other day. Megan showed it to me. There was this girl that it was a TikTok.
Okay.
I'm not even on TikTok, but it was a TikTok.
Sure.
So this girl received this comment that was like responding to a previous video of hers about her bench press form. Mm-hmm. And her bench press form was like, the commenter said, that form is terrible, what are you doing to your back? Well, you look at the video that she posted in response, her hips, her low back, thoracic spine, upper, everything was off the bench. Completely off the bench, like not even touching. And her response to it was, just hit a new PR with my terrible form. Proud of her bad form. Didn't even take responsibility to research what was good for him. Didn't even take. Right. I'm just like, sure. Right now you feel great. You just set a PR. What are you doing to yourself when you're gonna wake up with a stress fracture vertebrae because you arched your back too much? And to me, that's like a general consideration. Most people, if they don't do the time to the study. And you know, I want to say, just, you don't need to do an extensive amount of study to be able to see great fitness gains. But most people, when they get to this certain level of success, they take the safety element out of it. And they only worry about how they look, or they only worry about the aesthetic-based goal that they have. Nothing wrong with aesthetic-based goals, but what are you doing from a performance-based perspective of safety and working together? Like, what is your end result with your entire body? And I think going back to the lat pull down, you know, you see these videos of guys going behind the back, they have these popping back muscles, right? Look great.
Sure.
Talk to 95% of these big guys in the gym about their history of shoulder problems.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think you're gonna, from your sample, from my experience, I've talked to so many big dudes in the gym that have shoulder problems.
Yeah, because they're not lifting the right way.
They're not lifting the right way. They're not doing anything mobility-wise.
Yeah.
Look great. Everyone appreciates big muscles, right?
Sure.
No one appreciates broken down joints.
Exactly.
If it doesn't, you know, your big muscles don't matter to me if you can't use them.
Right.
And yeah, I think, you know, going back to the whole gym intimidation, the whole anxiety associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put too much credence. Don't put too much stock into these social media guys that are large. Don't get me wrong. A lot of them, most of them are good. Most people that are posted, they have genuine goals of like trying to make people better.
Right.
But there is that small subset that are more worried about how they look versus helping somebody out.
100%. I think to add to that too, when it comes to working out like that, going back to what we were talking about, like with drive, for example, and being able to envision how you want to look, how you want to be. Those guys that want to be those giant roid monsters, some people want to be that way, and that's their bag. That's cool, man. I mean, lift heavy weight, do your thing, and then you'll build muscle. In theory, there's more into it, but we're not going to get into that right now. But if your goal isn't to be this huge roid monster, there's no reason to go and do a lat row, lat pull down behind the head. Now, just to clarify, there's no reason to ever do that, but those bigger guys that have those big giant muscles and whatnot, if that's what they're doing and they just want to be shredded and they want to get big lats and that's what works for their body, that's fine. They kind of weighed the options and, hey, I really don't care that I have shoulder pain, or I don't know why I have shoulder pain, but I keep doing this and it gets my lat bigger and that's what I want. They're focused on that, giving big muscles. They're not thinking, oh, well, that's jacking my shoulder up, that's hurting my back, that's hurting my knee or whatever, you know. The flip side to that too is like the functional strength, because there's raw strength and there's functional strength. I think you and I can both agree that functional strength, I think, is a better, more optimal mindset to go off. But even like powerlifters, for example, they're still doing functional movements. Mm-hmm. Squat is a functional movement. Deadlift is a functional movement. You know, things like that. So what I'm trying to get at is muscles don't work individually. I mean, they do if you look at the muscle group, but one muscle versus three muscles, one muscle is going to lose every single time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So muscles work with other groups of muscles to create patterns, like squats, functional movements, right? So like we talk about on our Instagram all the time about triple flexion, triple extension, whatever kind of mechanics we're talking about. Triple extension, for example, for those that don't know what that is, it would be your ankle pointing downwards or plantar flexion. You'd have knee extension or your knee being straight, and then your hip being extended or your glutes basically contracting, right? Mm-hmm. So like when you jump, right, to get a bigger jump, you're going to use that triple flexion mechanic where you're using your calf muscle, your quad muscle, and your glutes to get higher. versus just using your calf muscle? Which one do you think is going to win? All three or just your little calf?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think
so. It's that
this
functional training versus I'm only going to train my calves. I'm going to jump really, really high versus the guy that has more functional recruitment of all three of those. He's going to beat you every single time just because he's using 3 to your 1 muscle. You know?
The most successful athletes, the most successful people in rehab know how to integrate those sorts of patterns to make muscles work together.
Exactly.
I think this is a good time to plug our individual and collaborative Instagrams, just because a lot of the shit that you'll see on there are these weird movements that people might judge you for in the gym, but they serve a broader purpose, like triple extension, with that sort in mind. And I also want to speak to the sort of traditional programming method of like muscle group days. I'm talking like chest day, arm day, back day, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And kind of how that works. So if you guys do want to check us out on social media, I am at Braun ATC. Josh is...
I'm just at Josh Lamparski.
Yep, that's Lamparski. And then we have at OPT Athletics as well. So you'll see a few things on there that kind of integrate what we're talking about into this sort of functional atmosphere. So, but going off of that, what I'm talking about with this muscle group specific thing, when you focus on like a chest day or a leg day or a shoulder day, your goal is purely aesthetic. I'm not saying that's wrong. Aesthetic goals are a big motivator and drive behind why most people go into fitness from a general perspective. You know, if an aesthetic-based goal would be something like, I want to lose 20 pounds in 8 weeks. That's an aesthetic goal. You're describing something based on how you look in a certain amount of time. A performance-based goal would be something like, I want to be able to run a sub 5-second 40-yard dash. That is related to a specific function, or a function such as like, I want to be able to reach overhead in my counter in the kitchen. There's a difference. You have your aesthetic base, I want to lose weight, or I want to put on 15 pounds of muscle, versus I want to do something. And where that comes to the programming aspect of what I'm trying to establish here, from a performance perspective, I don't think I've ever heard anybody prescribe a day when it comes to like a leg day or chest day, whatever, as a triple extension day or a triple flexion day. The closest thing I hear of that is push-pull.
Sure.
Because pushing and pulling are functional general movement patterns.
Yep.
For that whole purpose, I think as a beginner, if you're listening to this as somebody who is new to fitness, if you look at things much more than I want to work on my bicep, on my glutes, on my quads, on my calves, whatever, if you look at as to how those things work together, I guarantee you, long term, the muscle that you put on and the progress that you make in the gym or wherever you work out is going to be much more useful down the line than it would be if you focus on a muscle group. Anyways, that's my tirade with that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of piggyback off of that too. A lot of people can't do pull-ups, or they have a hard time doing one pull-up.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I get a lot of people all the time that say, hey, man, if I can do...
Even just push-ups.
Yeah, or push-ups, for example. We can go off of that, too. I can't do a push-up or a pull-up or whatever. And they know what muscles are involved with that. Like a push-up, for example. A lot of people think, I'm going to just need a bigger chest. So I'm going to do a ridiculous amount of, like, cable flies and whatever else for the chest. Or like for pull-ups, well, I need my back muscles, so I'm just going to do a lot of like rowing. And yeah, if I can get, row 200 pounds, I should be able to do a pull-up and then go do a pull-up or a push-up or whatever. And they still can't do it. It goes back into that muscle synergy, those muscles working together. With a push-up, you need to know all of the muscles that are involved. Not only do you need to strengthen all of them, but you also need to strengthen them as they're working together.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like a pull-up, for example, a lot of people don't know that it also uses your bicep. Well, that doesn't mean go do 500 bicep curls, in a month or whatever at whatever you're curling and just make your bicep really sore, because then you're just going to get a really big bicep that doesn't know how to do that movement pattern of a pull-up, right? So going back to those movement patterns like triple extension, triple flexion, you want to strengthen the muscle, don't get me wrong, with the whole doing the rows, or for like the lats or the rhomboids or whatever you're trying to focus on, or doing like cable flies for your pecs. But if you're trying to progress to a pattern like a push-up, or a compound movement like a push-up or a pull-up, a squat, whatever, you need to train whatever muscle you think is weak, strengthen that muscle, but then integrate it into that pattern and load it, so that muscle learns how to function in that pattern, thus increasing their ability to do whatever task that is, like a pull-up or a push-up.
For the beginner, obviously they need to do some general strengthening when it comes to muscles and everything like that. What types of things could they be doing are low impact, but incorporate the functional movements that you're talking about?
The way I think of taking exercises or taking a task that I want to accomplish, like a push-up, is what is the right form look like, and what am I trying to get to, and then just break down how I can make it easier. So, for example, push-up is basically a plank, right? The starting position, right? You're in a plank. Maybe just start with just holding a plank for X amount of time, get your core fired up so that you have a stable foundation. That's step number one, right? Another thing could be, can I push myself up from the ground from being in that plank position? No? Okay, well, how can I make it easier? Oh, well, I found just by experimenting and getting creative that when I go on my knees versus my feet, I'm able to do 10 of them. I just can't do it on my feet yet. Well, you keep working up to the point where you can get 10, 20, 30 or whatever on your knees, and you keep trying to do it in that plank position, and eventually you'll get it. You know what I'm saying? Or just breaking that thing down. Or like a pull-up, for example. You're not able to do a pull-up. Well, a pull-up's pretty hard to modify, right? Well, you can get it with an assistance, right? They have machines all the time at the gym that you see with those little platforms you put your knees on. It helps you pull it up, right? You can use bands, right? You can do them just pulling your body weight against the ground. I know it sounds kind of silly, but just getting that pattern down, that programming from your brain to get your arms to get in that pattern of doing that pulling up motion, that can help you, or just doing exercises in that position.
Break down the movement before you load it up or try it. So
exactly.
Take away some of the load and then incorporate the movement first.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
What, for example, is something that you wish you would have known going into when you first started going to the gym?
I really don't really have an answer, only because I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I think I'm like the oddball in the whole gym realm of things, because I've never really cared what people think of what I'm doing, and I like being creative. I like coming up with ways of doing whatever I'm doing, So if I go into the gym, I have no idea to do a bicep curl. I just know generally where my bicep is, right? If I feel it there, I'm probably doing something right. If you're creative enough, you can do exercises anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Calisthenics, like push-ups, which for people that don't know what calisthenics are, it's basically just body weight exercises that require no additional weight needed. Obviously, it's a little hard to do a body weight curl with your bicep, but you can do like pull-ups, for example. That's still a curl, more or less, quote unquote, using other muscle groups, but it's your bicep's still engaged, so your bicep is still going to get the benefits of that movement.
Arguably a little more if you're able to do a pull-up.
Exactly.
Because it's working together.
Exactly.
I don't know the science on that. If you're performing an isolation movement, sure, you're probably getting a lot more activity.
Right.
But what's it worth if you're working together with other muscles?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: why would certain people determine to do isolation movements versus compound movements, meaning you're doing more than just one muscle group?
I think the isolation movements, in my mind, have fallen into two specific realms. First of which being, if it's a non-rehab environment, like a bodybuilding type of thing, why are you doing a bicep curl? You want big biceps.
Exactly.
That's why I do a bicep curl. I want huge arms.
Yeah.
That's why I do a dip. Well, tricep push down. Dips, a little different. You get your shoulder in there. But same kind of aspect, right? And there is credence, and this is the second part of it, the rehab environment. You identify throughout your work with a physical therapist, athletic trainer, sports med doc, whoever. you identify a specific group or grouping of muscles that is insufficient in some way.
Sure.
So you perform the isolation movements at some time in your rehab to strengthen it up, to get it used to activity. And eventually, as time goes on, you work it into a functional movement pattern. For example, I'm not going to perform shoulder flies every single day I go into the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I performing shoulder flies? Well, I'm doing it because I need the requisite rotator cuff strength or deltoid strength to be able to handle my baseball pitch.
There you go.
You know, these isolation movements, they have credence. They're good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking isolation. I just think you need to think about what context, to what end are you performing this isolation movement.
Sure.
Are you performing it because you want big muscles? Great. That's your body. That's number one. That's your bodybuilding.
Yep, 100%.
Or are you performing it to strengthen up an area which you know you need to address?
Right.
But one of the most kind of highlighted things that I've read recently when it comes to functional movement and everything like that is kind of how, you know, you get your muscles that work together, but the force needs to go somewhere when you build up the force, whether it be a pitch or a throw or a tackle. Mm-hmm. The force needs to go somewhere. And if you are insufficient in one specific area, that's where the force is going to escape at. Mm-hmm. And that's where you get a compensation. Mm-hmm. You get a compensation because that specific area of isolation, maybe it's your shoulder, maybe it's your hip, maybe it's your core, wherever it happens to be, that is the area that needs the most attention right now. And then the other thing that I was taught early on in my education is that specific area is not always the area of complaint, and you may not even have a complaint of pain. So the isolation exercises, that's where it comes in.
Yeah.
That's where you would pick out something like, say, a bicep curl to help build up the strength there for it to tolerate whatever functional movement that you are doing. Or your goal is aesthetic, and that's perfectly fine. But for most people, for the general person who is worried about just staying healthy or performing function, or who I work with particularly as athletes, the exercises that you choose and exercise that you prescribe need to serve a larger purpose. They can't be isolation for the sake of isolation. They have to be isolation for the sake of, this is an identified deficit and this is what I need to address. But it's fitting into a larger picture.
Right, it's just one piece of a big picture. Yeah.
Exactly.
A puzzle, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. So let's wrap it up. I want to wrap up with just a couple questions that I think it'll change over time as we get more people on here and learn how to podcast. But first question, just what does health and fitness and being healthy mean to you?
Are you asking me specifically?
Yeah, you.
I mean, obviously, if there's nobody else here, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I love talking to myself, don't get me wrong.
As long as you don't answer yourself,
I do it all the time. Shut up, Eric. It's fine. Okay, cool. Great. Okay, what?
As far as, like, health, you said wellness and fitness, I just go more off of, do I look in the mirror? Do I look like the way that I look? And do I feel the way that I want to feel? As long as both of those answers are yes, I'm good, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. You get the whole people where they get into, yeah, well, your diet's not the best, which my diet is not the best. I should be eating better. I think a big component of health and wellness is going based off of how you feel about yourself, you know? Not necessarily because of the looks, but just literally how you feel, you know? And if you're stressed out all the time and you don't have any way to cope with anything, like if you take out all the foods that you like I'll like a greasy burger once in a while. I'm not going to be like, that's not healthy at all. I can't have that ever. I'm going to be like, well, that kind of sucks. So I'm going to view being healthy and fit and whatever else goes with that as negative because it took something that I liked away. You don't have to cut out all of the quote-unquote bad foods, which greasy burgers are terrible for you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing that. But you don't have to cut that out of your diet. You know what I mean? You can't have it every single day, 5 times a week, 3 times a day or whatever. But you don't have to remove that. You also don't have to go to the gym 5 times a day either. Some people do. I like going to the gym twice a day just because I just like being there, and it's a good stress reliever for me. I like working out. But for people that don't like working out, you don't have to go every single day. You don't have to go every other day.
just do whatever makes you feel good. If going twice a day makes you feel good, go twice a day. If going once a week makes you feel good and that's sufficient enough, and you're at where you want to be aesthetically and any other thing that you're looking at, then keep doing that, and don't let anybody else tell you to do something different because they have a different view of how they want to be, and because they have that view, everyone should be just like that as well. Like for you, for example, you might want to be a bigger, stronger athlete, and I just want to be an athlete, period. I just want to be able to run a mile. I don't care how long it takes me to run the mile. I just want to run the mile, period, without stopping. You might want to be able to run a mile in 5 minutes. You're going to have a way different training regimen than what I'm going to have.
Exactly.
So that's what health and fitness and wellness means to me. I mean, let me ask you the same question. What do you think of when people ask you, what does it mean when, to be healthy and fit? What do you perceive that as?
I think at the end of what you were saying is your training regimen and mine are going to look entirely different based on our goals, right?
Yeah.
And to me, health and fitness is happiness with the goals that you set. Your goal of running a mile and my goal of running a mile are, while the same end result, we made it a mile, the process is different. And in my mind, to be healthy, to be fit, to have wellness in general is loving your process, loving everything it takes to achieve whatever goal it has. So one thing I was taught early on from my mentor was find your process.
Yeah.
Process is different than your method. Your method is how you get there. Your process is these steps to identify how you get there.
100%.
It gets a little confusing, but so if my method is the training regimen I use to get to a mile, maybe I do want to run it in 5 minutes. So I'm going to work on a lot of the speed aspect and building my endurance to handle the increased speed, right? My process is creating the plan I have to attack that method.
Right.
So my process doesn't change. No matter what I have, I could have this fancy state-of-the-art gym, state-of-the-art something, or I could have nothing. Like, think about it this way. Marathon runners coming from Kenya have nothing. Nothing at all.
Yep.
Their process is better than a privileged whoever in Flagstaff, Arizona, that has been running their entire life, that has access to direct calorimetry or taking their VO2 max, the state-of-the-art stuff. That the reason why people succeed is not because of their method, their tools, but it's because of their process.
Right.
If you have the drive, if you hold yourself accountable day in and day out to accomplish the steps of your process, you will succeed. You might fail sometimes, but your process will account for those failures. And to me, being healthy and being successful in fitness means you have a solid process.
Well put.
The other thing I kind of asked this earlier, but I wanted to ask it again at the end, is if you could time travel back to the younger you, if you could go back to Josh at whatever age, what would you tell him?
Honestly, I wouldn't tell him to do anything different, only because of the drive that I had and the drive that I still have. I wouldn't go back and change anything. So I think that's a really good thing to be able to say, is that if you can go back in time, would you be able to tell yourself, what would you do differently? I wouldn't do anything different.
Last thing I'll ask, if there was one thing that you knew all 7.5 billion people on this planet, you knew they were going to listen to you, actively listen, and take in and appreciate what you had to say, what would it be?
I would just say, if you're trying, whatever you're trying to shoot for, get a picture in your head, get a plan, like you were saying, get a process, and just go for it, and don't let anybody else tell you different. Because how they are planning to get there versus how you plan to get there versus how I plan to get there, they're all going to get there, but they might be 10 million different ways to get there. There's never one way to do one thing. There's multiple ways to do the same thing. You just need to figure out what way works best for you.
Yeah.
What about you? What would you want your takeaway message to be if, same scenario, everyone in the world was listening to you, and you wanted to have one drive home message that everyone took from whatever you were talking about? What would you want?
I think my statement would be that everyone is a mirror. Everyone is a mirror of what you could potentially be. I operate under the belief that you and I, while we may share a lot of the same interests and beliefs, obviously we have different upbringings, right?
Sure.
But the difference between what you can appreciate about me and what I can appreciate about you is a simple conversation and looking at each other and appreciating what we have. So all 7.5 billion people that are listening right now that, hearing me talk, they are not so dissimilar once you get to know them. And once you get to know them and appreciate them, that's where love comes in. There doesn't need to be all this hate. This hate stems from a certain worry and doubts and fear about what other people have to offer. And that goes back to what you were saying earlier about anxiety going in the gym, people looking at you, right?
Yep, 100%.
People are afraid of the unknown, and people don't know other people. Take the time to get to know that other person. That other person could be you. You just haven't met them yet.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for
that was fun. Good time. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to a couple of Dumbbells. If you liked us, please rate us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also subscribe if you'd like. Also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, at OPT Athletics. Excited to talk to you guys next Monday. Stay well and continue to opt for greatness. I saw those ones and I was just kind of like, all right, cool.
We got 71 followers, though. Look at us.
Oh, we're doing well. I was kind of hoping we'd stay at 69, though.
So
I don't know why.
You're going to judge me, but just recently, now I'm 26, right? Mm-hmm. And I know what 69 is, obviously. I never knew why it was called 69.
What's 69?
Yeah, shut up. I'll show you.
Oh.
Got enough beer. We need another pack. Might need another 24 pack for me, but so
I'm sorry.
I just realized when I looked at the number, I'm like, oh, I see why. 'Cause it's upside down.
Yeah, their bellies.
Got it.
Their stomachs.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
That's why they call them bumping uglies.
That's good. I like that.